Okay, sweet. Hey everybody, this is Noah with the President Foxman YouTube channel, and we are back here with Neil. It's been a while since we've had a kind of recorded conversation, but we wanted to do a reflection on Midwestuary, how that was. Um, at the time of posting this, I think I've posted all my stuff that I have for Midwestuary, so yeah, it's going to be fun to kind of reflect on it. But Neil, did you have any thoughts you wanted to kick us off with?
No, thanks for inviting me. It's
Well,
yeah, I
really,
said,
in earnest,
well,
you invited me, but we'll
that is
we'll
true. That is true. Oh man, they already saw straight through my ruse. Uh but I think I in yeah, no, I invited you to Midwestuary too. So something you invited me to something um at some point. Um yeah, I said to you I was kind of in a weird spot um coming back from Midwestuary, and I only felt like back to my normal self probably yesterday. I think sometime yesterday I um so I will say I was influenced by spirits in some way, shape, or form during Midwestuary. I can't tell you exactly what size or shape or feeling those spirits were. I do have some thoughts on those that, but they're heavier, and maybe I could save them for later on in the conversation. So
yeah.
yeah.
Well, do we want to start out with what is Midwestuary? I think there'll be maybe some people who stumble across this and they have no clue what's going on. And so, how would you describe this conference that we attended a couple days ago?
So yeah, so about maybe a year and 3 months ago, something like that. And Chad is going to have to correct the record if I get any of this done because he's got the mythology, but also the reality properly structured in his mind. But about a year and 3 months ago, about 15 months ago, I would say, Grim Grizz put out an SOS onto the internet. And Griswold Gaius Grim Grizz, he is another channel that's closely associated with Noah, myself, and this flotilla of YouTube channels that we call the TLC. And Grim Grizz is one of the main characters. And he put out a distress call saying, "Hey, I could really use some help fixing up some things around my house. If some people could come out and help me, and we turn it into a mini retreat or event." And so we started talking about that, and then it became clear that for logistics reasons and other reasons that wasn't going to be a viable option. But then Chad reached out to PVK and said, "I still think it'd be good to do an event, a retreat of some kind." Or some kind of an event. And PVK said, well, the Chicago Bridges of Meaning group uh, has been meeting for many years, and they're a big group and they're well organized, and they are also interested in an event. So why not pair with Chicago since they're only about 2 hours away from Chad? And Chad reached out to them, and right around that time, Chad reached out to me. He's like, "Hey, will you help me?" And I said, "Absolutely." And so I didn't, at the time, I didn't know Sam. At the time, I'd only been participating in TLC out of the lurk, as we call it, for maybe about 8 months, something like that. But I already considered Chad my best friend even by that time. Like we went from 0 to 60 very fast. And and Sam Tiedemann was actually one of the he's I would say he's like you have different tiers of celebrity within the TLC, and Sam was a
Mhm.
higher level character, the higher level tier. And he's one of the few people that like I don't think knew who I was, and but also I had a lot of I would say commonality with him in that we both took evolution seriously, and it was something that for both of us I think initially shook our faith, probably me more than him. I think he kept his faith all the way through college. I did not. So I had a good amount of commonality with him. Eventually, we'll talk about some topics pertaining to evolution, but it was just in general, it was really enjoyable working with Sam and the other members of the crew, including Mo and Pastor Mo and Dan. I won't dox Dan, but he's basically like the chief operating officer of logistics and making everything come together. So anyway, to cut to the chase, uh, they agreed that they wanted to do an event, and Chad kind of said like, "Well, I'm going to invite like 6 people," and Chad just invited all these people, including PVK, and almost immediately they all said yes, like the 6 people, like all 6 of them. And so when you have 6 somewhat famous speakers that are each able individually to draw a crowd of 100 to 200, and Jonathan Pageau was one of those speakers, and he had the symbolic world which drew 500. Then the Chicago crew is like, we've got the best lineup that we've ever lined up for an event, and we need to find a church that would match that. And Chad looked around at a few different churches, but then the Chicago group, I think it was the Chicago group. They found the Elmhurst, which is a suburb of Chicago. It's very close to O'Hare Airport, Christian Reformed Church, which very large church, has beautiful campus, beautiful theater, and or sanctuary. I don't know the right. You got to forgive the Catholic in me. I don't know the right word. Um, and also had like 30 rooms that were like classrooms that are typically there for teaching kids, but would work great for estuary breakout sessions. And so Sam and the team over in Chicago really handled a lot of those logistics and figuring out like talking to the pastor and talking to the team over at the church and making sure all that was ready to go. And then Chad and I mean, we typically we would chat. I think we started every other month, and then it moved to a monthly cadence once we were about 6 months away, and then once we were 4 months away, it was like every other week, and then it got down to a weekly cadence as we got close to the event. And so Chad and I did things like figured out, Chad did all the branding, he put together all the. So we one of the things we were thinking about is we were like, well, how do we combine this virtual space with like the physical? One of the taglines, and this is Grim Grizz's tagline, is remember embody. There is no agency. But the remember embody piece is like, hey, remember all this virtual stuff that we're doing. It's unless we unless we take it and use it in our day-to-day lives in some way, shape, or form, then the question is like, what is it all for? Are we just serving ourselves if it's just this virtual thing? And but at the same time, we have these people that need Estuary in their day-to-day life as a place to talk and to know and be known. But maybe their estuary only meets once a month. Maybe they don't have people that they can talk to or think about these things with, or maybe they don't have friendships outside of. And I'm one of those people. I don't have people in my local life that I can be like, what did you think of PVK's last video? What do you think of the marriage crisis? What do you think of this? Da, da, da. I'm looking to start an estuary group, but I'm not one of those people. And because I'm in the New Orleans area, because I'm in a place that there's not a lot of local people that I've yet found. I think that's going to change, by the way, but there's not a lot of local people that I've yet found to talk about these things. That's what maybe come out of the lurk of TLC and forged friendships, of which you are one of, the few
Mhm.
that I found to be really important. And sorry, this turned into a really long monologue. But anyway, so it's like, how do we merge the virtual aspect of what we're doing in TLC with the physical aspect of like, let's meet in person, let's get to know each other face to face. And with all of the events, different kinds of events, as I see it, there's kind of two types of events. You have the smaller events, like PVK had the Connecticut event. That was the first event I actually went to, and that was last fall, and I loved that. But it was only 20 of us. And with that event, it's not really intended to bring new people into the space. It's really, I think, intended to solidify relationships and really get to know each other more closely. Um, but then you have this event, which is like going to draw many people due to some big names. And then with this event, we were thinking, okay, how do we get people exposed to A, the estuary process, B, the broader community that is TLC, and then C, get them inspired to actually go out and create an estuary group or join an estuary group or do something that helps connect them and their local community into this broader network of meaning and sense making. That yeah, so
Mhm.
that those were some of our goals for the conference. I don't know how well we pulled them off, but we didn't fall on our face completely. So for that, I'm grateful. So
Yeah. And I think there's a certain point to be said that you don't know, how successful it is until 3 years from now. You run into somebody and they say, "Oh yeah, I started in Estuary because I went to this conference or I saw a clip from this conference and felt inspired or something like that." So it's yeah, who knows? But it was a great experience for me. So I can only say that.
yeah, yeah, I got to. I had met you before because I was
Mhm.
in Washington, but like getting to see you interacting with other people and more than just me monopolizing your time was great, you know, because I don't know, yeah, like I really like people I know or people that I care about, I really like just getting to know them generally speaking, and so and that involves more than just me, if that makes sense. That's like the
Hmm.
broader aspects of who they are, and I felt that way about a lot of people that I was able to connect with during this event. And everybody always says that their biggest regret is that they didn't get to talk to or meet the people that, or all the people that they wanted to talk to or meet. I didn't actually feel that way. I felt like if I was just about at my limit, meaning if like more people really wanted to talk to me, it would have been a problem. But like I felt like everyone that I really wanted to talk to or spend more time with and everyone that wanted to talk to me, I felt like I had at least some amount of time, whether it was like 20 minutes, half an hour, or an hour to do
Hmm.
that. And so that was really good.
Yeah. I think I just about hit my Dunbar number. I think there was a certain point where especially after that barbecue, where
Hmm.
I kept meeting new people and it just felt
Yeah.
like too much. But once I kind of stopped meeting as many new people, I could like sit down and have longer conversations with the people I have met or people I knew before, and those are really good. So if there's anything I wish there was more of was having more time to kind of talk with the people that I already had met. But there's only so much you can do in a weekend, so that's just how it
Yeah,
is.
and I had that in back of my mind that there was a couple I met that were there, Miles and Rebecca, and they were one of the high points of the event, meeting them because like one thing I was thinking to myself, and I'm glad I this popped into my mind early on in the event, is like I have so many friends in this space. Like I don't mean to brag, but like there's a bunch of people I really like that are friendly in this space that I could just be very kind of provincial and just say, okay, I only care about these people and I only want to talk to, and I actually did do that for the most part where I was just focused on particular people that I already knew, but with the exception of Estuary Group and Miles and Rebecca and just getting to know them. And I suspect that Miles will definitely I shouldn't say suspect definitely, but I suspect Miles will come out of the lurk. But there were a surprising number of couples who came
Hmm.
uh and I at least for the ones that I talked to, they really appreciated getting to know what their spouse was involved in, getting to know the people around it, because until you start meeting people and talking, it's just like, what is this? A big question mark. So
Yeah. Mm. Trying to think of what else to immediately bring up. Because I think there's a few things that come to mind, right? The major events. But maybe what was your experience in your estuary group? How was
yeah,
that? How's
yeah.
that for you?
S- I think it was probably the opposite of many in that we had tears early, like within the first
Mm.
20 minutes, we had tears or 30 minutes. And then the rest of the estuary sessions were more serious and like the heavy hitting like big culture. I not that the tears weren't serious, but it started out personal and then it went to like heavy cultural topics.
Hmm.
So, and it was good, but yeah. But we had a really fun balance in our estuary group of some I'll call like on fire for the Lord people, of which I also am one, but gotta keep my cards relatively close to the vest. Versus people that are I would call them in the in like the Chad zone of like the Chad 5 years ago of like don't push your God on me, pal, you know. And so
Hmm.
that there was some initial fire between those two factions. Not really factions, but there was some. But then once everyone got their footing in terms of where they were coming from, it was really productive. And we had a really good range of ages. Like we had people
Hmm.
from their early 20s, or maybe like mid 20s actually, like mid 20s up to probably like 50s. 50s and say yeah, one guy might have been like 60-ish, but like yeah, it was a pretty good range of ages, generations, and perspectives. It's really good.
Yeah. My group leaned younger. I think um there's a guy by the name of Nick. He was kind of the oldest guy there. And then Grim Grizz, the two of them were the oldest.
Mhm.
Um, and then but for the most part, it's people in their, yeah, probably 40s, early 40s, mid 30s, and then maybe people in their late 20s for the most part. I think that's kind of where it stuck around. Again, leaning to the earlier end of things. Um, but yeah, we had a lot of good conversations. We didn't get very emotional. We kind of joked about that everybody else is crying, but we're like diving into it. Um, for the most part, I think we all leaned very Christian.
Mm.
Um, and I think there was some strong representation of, young Catholic and Orthodox people. I think in general, this conference kind of leans that way, especially with Peugeot being there. You're going to get a lot more of the Orthodox representation. Um, but yeah, we had a wide variety of kind of topics that came up, which was fascinating. Um, and I think if we're going to go into like subjects later, I think the evolution one I think was a fascinating one that I didn't expect to see pop up. Because I think
Mm.
Vervaeke's talk kind of brought this up with Michael Levin and kind of bringing in some of those ideas.
Mhm.
Um, because Stephen Meyer got brought up, which I thought was interesting. So
I've heard the name, but I genuinely don't know who Stephen
he's
Meyer is.
an intelligent design guy.
Okay. Okay. Oh, I think I know what you're talking about. Yeah.
Yeah. And so there was a bit of evolution skepticism that creeped into the conversation. I was like, what? Where am I? Like, what? I would expect
I
this
I
more
am
from
s-
like a
I am sort of an intelligent design guy. I mean,
oh
in that like,
yeah,
you know, but I just think God uses evolutionary processes to fulfill,
yeah,
his
and intelligent design as opposed to kind of unguided Darwinian
gotcha.
evolution.
Yeah.
That's kind of the binary, and then obviously there are shades in between of
Yeah, yeah.
what that looks like. Um, but yeah, it was fascinating. And then what came to mind when they were having those conversations was also Berlinski, David Berlinski. I don't know if you're super familiar with him,
No.
but he's an older guy, a mathematician who is very much a skeptic.
Mm.
He's very much like the what was it? I don't know.
Alex
Anyway, he's not.
O'Connor,
He's
but an older guy.
no, he's not an atheist. He
Okay.
might be closer to Alex O'Connor right now, maybe,
Mm.
but he's more on the theistic side.
Mm.
So he's like, he's not actively a part of any religion, but he also has a big problem with like the Richard Dawkins types, and has written extensively critiquing evolutionary biology, like traditional models of it, that don't account for kind of newer evidence and basic just takedowns of new atheism is kind of what he's known for. So he's an
Cool.
interesting guy to look into. very good at rhetoric. He's like the in that Chesterton vein of people who I don't want to get into an argument, even if I think they're wrong. I prefer to to not have to go against that. Um, yeah. Did you have something you were gonna add?
I've got some topics to throw out. So I wrote on my notes, I said thoughts on the speakers,
Hmm.
unpacking the do not use LLMs argument,
Okay.
and thoughts on people. So that's like non-celebrity. Thoughts on future events. And then my fifth topic, which is I think probably the most significant thing I was left with, is just how, man, I don't even like the intelligentsia class has no idea how different Gen Z is. They have no
Yeah.
idea. And I now have an idea. And my eyes were opened on that. This like I had an idea, but like now I like really like I know now. And
Yeah.
and it's not all bad and it's not all good.
There's
And
plenty of
it's
bad,
just there's
but
plenty of bad. Yeah. But it's just very different. And
yeah.
I want to be and I kind of want to talk about that last, but like I really want to be fair to Gen Z because like I really, really feel for Gen Z and where they're coming from and the current moment. And yeah, so it's like I feel for them.
Yeah.
Mm.
So you wanted to stick to that for later.
Yeah, yeah, maybe.
Okay.
So you want to start with the speakers first?
Sure. Yeah. I thought
Yeah.
I'll kind of lump everything together, just all the stage stuff together for the most part. I think it was all really good. I think there are kind of some slower moments or some moments that were a little frustrating for people and for me specifically. I think the LLM conversation was one where I felt like it just kept going in circles and they were not hitting anything that I thought they should be talking about. Um, and
Th-
it kept kind of swerving. Go ahead.
Can
Yeah.
well one thing that came to my mind with the LLM conversation was the Vervaeke basically saying, you know, you're fooled into thinking this is a person or an agent. You know, he said they're even calling them agents, and they aren't beginning to call them agents now, but that you're interacting with. And what, as he was saying that, what went through my mind is video games, and all of these speakers are too far removed that I don't think any of them has ever played video games seriously or taken video games seriously. But there's something about video games where from the time I was like 10, you know, I was deliberately placing myself within a frame and interacting with an agent and treating
Hmm.
multiple agents as, for lack of a better word, autonomous entities that I had to engage and interact with in one way, shape, or form.
Yeah.
And so I was like, well, what's the difference between LLM and just a really immersive video game agent or personality? And yeah, go ahead. Yeah.
I was gonna say, there's a it's so weird because it's just like a one-off. I had read a philosophical article about something. I had opened up a journal in my university library and I just saw this is the first one and the word video games in it. So I was like, oh, like let's read this. But the argument of the paper was from a Kantian ethics perspective, uh, should you play video games?
Yeah.
And the idea was basically that from Kant's point of view, that you know you're treating these different agents at different levels, at, in different ways, and even if it's just simulated, that does affect the way that you treat everybody else. And so their argument was, oh no, it was should vegans play video games is the title of the paper. And the idea is that if you're holding this standard in one place, why aren't you holding it here, right? Your love of violence in video games towards these agents, why is that not reflected like uh, the same way that you feel about animals? I think is the way
Mhm.
that argument was structured. And so there was a little bit of that was kind of peeking through Vervaeke's points there, which was, if you're treating these AI models poorly, which I think you kind of took for granted that is what you do, no matter what.
Mhm.
You're not giving them credit when you're writing your book or you're giving your talk necessarily, I guess. And so
I
you're not
didn't think he
treating
was
them
worried of
fairly.
like he wasn't worried about them being conscious and having feelings. He was more
No, no,
worried
no, no,
on
no.
the impact of we individuals. Yeah.
Oh, yeah, exactly. But I think that the point still stands, right? Are you treating them fairly? Because if you're treating them fairly, then you're not. It's not a problem, right? Because
Mhm.
you're treating them as you're treating them in a moral way, and you're practicing that. And as you encounter real agents, you'll be reflecting the same thing. There's no separation between your person between I'm I act like a slave driver to robots, but everybody else I act like a saint. Like that's not. I think that's kind of what Vervicki was getting at. It was like this weird divide that we have. But
And yet in this one arena I can be a world-class sniper and then I can go and pray the next in the next arena I'm in.
yeah, like what is the role of video games in that? Um, and I don't know. I think there is a point where I think there is a clear boundary that you kind of can come up against,
Mhm.
and it feels real
Mhm.
enough. I think there are times you play video games where like there's an evil route that you can go down,
Mhm.
and there are times where I'm like I don't want to do that. Like I don't want
Yeah, yeah.
to. I
In the
don't have an
in the
interest.
in the words
Oh,
of
go ahead.
Elizabeth Oldfield, you feel the ick.
Yeah, to a certain extent. Yeah, I'm like I don't know. At the same time though, uh, I don't know. I think about this too. Famously, there's a game called Super Hot. I don't know if you're familiar with it.
Mhm.
Um, it's a game where time only moves when you move, and you're given the gun, and it's like very stylized. And when you shoot people, they explode. Like they're all made of red glass, and they'll explode into a bunch of shards of glass. And it's like a cool, stylish game. But they made a VR version, and in the VR version, the first level, in order to escape the first level, you have to shoot yourself in the head. And there's a huge kind of controversy around this about like what does that mean, right? And they ended up changing the level because of this. But Jonathan Blow, a kind of big name in the video game space, was very much against this. He's also against violence in video games for the most part. He says that violence is a crutch. There's a whole kind of another conversation with that. But this idea of simulated self-harm, especially in a VR environment, being kind of like, like you're training people to do something, and what you do matters. And that I can get on board with. I think it's the problem is like in the in-between stages. Like that is an obviously immersive environment that you are putting yourself in. This is obviously you, and you're practicing this maneuver. But when you're clicking a mouse button, there is a certain level of removal that you have, a separation that I think there is room for wiggle room of saying like, and part of the reason I say this is because I'm defending myself of making videos like playing Fallout as a nihilist.
Yeah.
Like I think there is room for this level of experimentation that, it's better in a simulation than doing it in real life. And so if there is a choice, then going that way.
Yeah, that idea of participating in doing this and knowing what it is in the game and um as you were saying that like I felt like
Yeah, there's like a
yeah,
there's a
yeah,
feeling to that.
a visceral reaction. Exactly. Yeah, I've only tried VR a few times in my life, and I'm afraid of heights. And I tried VR where you're like standing on the edge of a building. It was right when the Oculus Rift came out, and I was genuinely like I had the fear within me, even though I knew it wasn't real, even though it was a screen door effect. Even though there was a screen door effect where it's like the resolution wasn't great, but like it was real enough that my body. So there's like the visceral reaction. There's your conscious awareness, and then there's sort of like the subconscious visceral reaction that you cannot fake and you just feel it one way or the other, whether you like it or not. And I think I think like you said, there's enough separation with a mouse and keyboard or a gamepad that you don't cross that visceral reaction boundary. Um, Although I have even seen movies where I cross that boundary where I'm like, I can't, like, I really don't want to be here. And not even fear, not even like a horror movie, but just things where like a character is being brought down a path. Um, the one that I always go back to that like is called Requiem for a Dream.
Mm.
And I started watching that movie with friends in college. We were all like happy and jokey, and we left that movie. We stopped watching. It wasn't even on a big screen. It was on like a college computer, and we left that going like, okay, I think I'm gonna go back to my room. Like it was just it like had drained all.
Mm.
And I'm not even saying it was a bad experience because it was a profoundly powerful experience. But like I don't know, there are limits. Yeah.
Yeah.
Um,
And maybe I'm too open. I think there's always that, that sense of like there's definitely a line that can be crossed, and I might not be sensitive enough to know where that line is, but I know it's definitely past the like once you go this point, it's too far. And so
Well, I think that's where I'm against fundamentalism in the sense of Vervaeke's like, do not use this.
yeah.
Because I think one of the primary purposes of life, as I see the purpose of life, is to cultivate discernment, is to actually cultivate that sense of I'm going to do this, I'm not going to do this. This is where I messed up. This is where, and be able to experience those consequences and do that. Now, I do use LLMs. I'll talk about how and why, how I use them and how I feel relatively confident that I'm not being uh, adversely impacted by them. But another example that I do want to give, where I have a little faith in my capacity to use them responsibly, a little faith, is in regard to Facebook, Twitter, X, other social media other than YouTube. Um, I think I was in the first 50,000 Facebook users because it came out my freshman year of college. My college was not in the first wave, but it was in the second wave of colleges. Um, so I was on Facebook very early, and it was a fun way to meet up with friends, find parties, stuff like that. And and it was right after COVID. It was the summer of 2020 that I said like I think being on this and that went also for Twitter. I said like I think it's causing me more harm than good. And
Mhm.
B, I think any action I take on this is causing more harm than good. Like, the only right move, oh, what a funny game. The only correct move is not to play. Uh, and so I didn't delete my Facebook account, but I just stopped. I was sufficiently convinced within my own heart, you could say, like voluntarily, that I no longer felt the need to log in.
Mhm.
Um, and I didn't, I think what allowed me to do that is I didn't have a sufficient number of friends that I really cared about to maintain that relationship over Facebook when I knew I could call them or text them or whatever it was. And so that
Yeah.
was fine. And that was, before TLC. Um, yeah. So the fact that I have situations where I have been able to recognize that and I can walk away. Um, yeah. Any thoughts on that? Or I could keep going in regard to LLM use,
Well,
but yeah.
I can dig into discernment a little bit more. This is part of my frustration with that talk, or that not talk, but it was a Q&A that didn't end up becoming a Q&A. It was a it was a discussion.
Yeah.
Um, and the only time wisdom was ever mentioned in that entire or discernment, I don't even think discernment ever came up as a topic in that entire talk.
Yeah. Or
Um,
like bad spirits. Like it was Fellowship of the Spirit, and nobody talked about, oh, there are bad spirits.
yeah. But in that context, the only time wisdom was brought up was in regards to can LLMs develop wisdom, or could they ever? And I'm like, I don't care. Like that, this is not what this conversation's about to me.
Yeah.
Um, we're going off onto a different thing. Like, let's talk about what's happening right now, like what we have access to,
Mhm.
and like how can we use the tools in front of us well or like wise? And maybe the answer to that is don't touch them, right? Like it's too early to know. We don't know what we're dealing with, so leave them behind. Um, but obviously the answer isn't jump in and go all the way. And so like how do we find the wisdom to kind of do that? I think that would have been the most valuable way of kind of approaching that. And it felt like it just, you know,
Mhm.
completely went off the rails. And I was like,
Mhm.
oh gosh.
Yeah, I remember my father, this is maybe like 10 years ago, because I was, yeah, maybe more like 5 years ago, but I was working from um, my parents' place in Texas, and he was watching me work, and he was like, "Man, I never thought all that time spent playing video games would actually be useful for you."
Mhm.
And it was like, because all the movements and the thinking, the ability to figure out a system quickly, and then once you figure out that system, figure out the problem and then the solution, like that is a universal set of criteria of like any game. It's like figuring out a system, figuring out the and I don't think LLMs are different in that respect because I suspect that those that are younger and are able to test them and push them and it's like, oh, these are their weaknesses, these are their strengths, these are the areas where they don't have any they don't have any lived experience to actually test whether these things are true or not. Um, and Yeah, so anyway, I that lack of exactly what you said, that lack of the willingness to even trust in the process of cultivating wisdom, that we could cultivate wisdom from coming in contact with something that is potentially dangerous. It's like anything that's dangerous. Mhm.
Well, it was very satanic panic kind of stuff. And that came up in a conversation in our Estuary group.
Mhm.
And uh actually no, I think it came up in a conversation that we had after the first night or the barbecue or something like that.
Hmm.
And we were talking about this. And I think I was coming to the conclusion that the one of the major problems with the satanic panic was that things that weren't satanic were called satanic. And then when people investigated them and got closer, they saw
Mhm.
it wasn't bad. And so they turned around and they were like, well, that must mean none of this is bad.
Yeah.
And it's like, okay, now we're opening up the floodgates to some crazy stuff. Yeah.
Yeah, it's like yes. Yes. It's the failure to properly discern the borders of categories, like
Hmm.
racist or, yeah, man, that's it.
Well, and
And,
I think there's a difficulty too with like, well, that goes into the fruit of the knowledge of good and evil.
mhm,
Like, what do we make of that? And there is a point where, you have to trust somebody wiser than you who says
mhm,
no and going with that.
mhm.
Um, the problem is like respectfully, I don't see John Vervaeke as being that person for me, right? He's not like a spiritual leader to me. He's not my father. Um, and so there is a certain level of like who are you to me to be able to say that without giving any more reason? Uh,
Yeah. Well,
and that
I
that
like
was part of it.
I liked Paul Vanderklay's response of basically you will know them by their fruits,
Yeah.
meaning is the person better in their individual relationships? Are they better in their job? Are they better? There are all these ways, like Pete, this goes back to Pete. I think he's channeling Peterson because Peterson is like the way we know something's true is we look at it from this angle and then the historical and the philosophical and the psychological and and I really like that. And yeah, and I do feel that way generally speaking, especially the more connected I am into my local church, the more relied upon I am. Your responsibility goes up. But then also the ability for other people to discern if something's up, if something's bothering you. Um, yeah. So I think alone and isolated, these things are really dangerous. But alone and isolated, technology, generally speaking, is really dangerous.
Yeah. I yeah. I think what was difficult too is that there's a verse that, has come to my mind a lot, which is the St. Paul writes something along the lines of do not touch has the appearance of wisdom. Um, and this thought of like these prohibitions feel very wise, but in the end they're missing it, right? They
Mhm.
end up often causing more harm than good. And that's kind of what I was trying to get at too with the satanic panic stuff. Um,
Yeah, regarding the prohibition, and this is something I think about a lot as a parent. It's like in some ways, this is gonna sound rough, but like in some ways, I want my daughter to be exposed to the real world to the maximal extent that is safe and responsible, if that makes
yeah,
sense.
yeah,
And discerning that line is really hard because it's like going from 17 and you're a child and you don't do anything to 18 and you're in college and you have complete freedom and you've never made any
yeah.
decisions on your own. Uh, yeah.
I think yeah, it's not a good system of going about it. Um, yeah.
And then what is safe? You know, this fetish of safety. And that's like,
Mhm.
um, man, I hate this because like on one hand, I completely understand our desire to make a safer world. I completely understand it. And then I think especially in the early 1900s, there was so much return on investment in some basic safety things like seat belts, airbags, like stop signs, traffic lights. Like, I mean that's just in regard to
Yeah.
driving, but like um yeah, but then and industrial machinery and in OSHA and it's like I'm a big believer in that 10% of the work or effort gets you like 90% of the benefit. And then
Yeah.
the other 90% of the work is typically to perpetuate some kind of bureaucratic apparatus that's more that whose interest is more in line with preserving itself than it is with actually it could be
Doing what
for
it's
the
made to
better.
do.
Correct, correct. Yeah, but
Yeah.
it's primary, like the primary purpose of life is to stay alive. Like that's number one. And then the secondary purpose is to like make something new, create, but first it's stay alive.
Yeah.
And anyway, uh, so the safety thing I think is often like that. It's once where am I going with this in regard to LLMs? I think it's that those that are able to discern the ways in which, for example, the internet more generally or search engines can lead you astray versus those that say, nope, nope, I don't trust any of it. Um, the people who say, I can't do it or I won't do it or I refuse to do it, they're going to have fewer opportunities. And in some ways they're governed by fear, in a lot of ways. And I don't know. I think a lot about Jesus saying, "Do not be anxious about your life," all those things. And there's a tension. I know I'm taking this in a weird direction now, but there's a tension. I think it's related because there's a tension biblically between like the wisdom tradition and you could call it grace or reliance on God or Jesus take the wheel. There's that tension. And PVK was talking about this in his video about Job. It's like the wisdom of the world that says like, oh, this, 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 and then there's the wisdom of God, like we walk by faith and not by sight. And I I do see that lacking in a lot of people, even people of faith, where because of the fear, there's a throwing of the baby out with the bathwater, and there's an inability to discern the spirits.
Yeah. You mentioning safety also reminded me of my wife is kind of her experience is a little bit in public health. So she's kind of been in that realm. And so I hear about the stuff she learned in college, and it's horrifying. Like there's the stuff that's really obvious, right? The stuff that most people who kind of know something about the dark side of public health, they'll know about, like the Tuskegee trials. I don't know how familiar you are with that. Um, uh, which involved purposefully giving people diseases to see how it would affect them without their knowledge. Uh, there's textbooks that they would read for class, and it was all read as, being from a positive perspective of people who would lie to the general public about um, specific, diseases that were going on, uh, giving it the impression that it's very much more likely to catch than it was, and as a way of fundraising. Um, and that was seen as like good because it's for the greater good to lie to the public if we can get this going. Uh, Cases where somebody could help people out of sex slavery, but their focus was on reducing the number of diseases that the people who were in sex slavery would get. Um, and the way that they did that was they basically convinced the pimps that this was important because they wouldn't lose as much money. Things like this, where and this is kind of all through this kind of stuff where it's like this is all for safety, but safety for what purpose, right? Um, whose safety, right? So it's kind of all it's all there too, right? There's plenty of good stuff, but there's also been plenty of stuff about lying to the public in order to for their own good, to make them safe.
This Gen Z, maybe we could pivot to Gen Z
Yeah.
a little bit because what I notice is yeah, I don't know what I'm talking about here. Like I'm not around many Gen Z people, but I think you're around more. But um, what I sense missing is sort of that um, trust in grace, trust in and to be fair, I didn't have trust in grace when I was in my 20s. Like when I was in my 20s, I was going to get what I wanted and I was going to figure it out. And that's how I thought about the world.
Mhm.
Like, um, and yeah, yeah. Th Thoughts on that? That, yeah.
Yeah. That's a little bit of my disconnect, right? I think there is a level of that's been kind of my attitude most of my life, has been a certain level of it's going to work out. Like whether I put all my effort towards something or, just kind of go by, it's all going to be fine in the end. Because I have a certain trust that, I'm not the one at the wheel. I trust God is at the wheel, and he'll take care of it. Um, but I see plenty of people around me who don't believe that. Um, Mostly because they're not in a religious context. And I know that there are some people who are in a religious context, and I've run into more and more of them. Uh, People who are in a religious context, but they don't trust that God is going to take care of them. He's in charge. Um, and so when I see those people who feel that way or experience that, there's just a deep anxiety about everything, a lack of control. I know people who their greatest fear is getting old. Like that is, and what they want most in the world is to be famous. And those are the those are the two things they build their life around.
Yeah.
And yeah, it's scary. Like there's a level of I don't know, just that anything that goes wrong in the world, that they don't know what to do because they can't trust anything is going to take care of it because they have a deep distrust of any systems. And they know they can't do anything because they're just one. of a bunch of people who all feel like they're helpless. I think a lot of this is around, especially like climate related issues. You'll see a lot of
Yeah.
like young people who um, they see whether, there's a lot of debate about what the veracity of everything is, but like for this argument, let's just take them at their word that this is something that's real. And yeah, they see a bunch of people who are basically cashing in the check now that the Gen Z will never be able to kind of experience the world. That the world is going to be gone basically by the time they get their hands on it.
What do you mean by be gone? Like what do you
I mean,
think
it'll
they
be
really
destroyed,
fear?
right? Like I
Yeah.
think that's part of it. Like the
But
um
but my sense of the perspective toward the climate crisis is like it's never actually thought through. It's like this ambiguous, the world will be destroyed, and
yeah.
it's just like left up in the air what that means. Like I mean, it's like
Yeah.
completely ambiguous, you know? Like
Well,
it's
and I think that's how it's left for a lot of people. I'm not going to
Mhm.
plan to speak on everybody's behalf, but I think
Yeah.
like for plenty of people, it's not real to the extent where they have an idea of what it is. It's not like the apocalypse or like Revelation where they have this idea. Um, it's more of the fact that like everything is dying. Like it's just not going to be there. And how it dies, who knows, right? But
Mhm.
it's just not going to be there. Whether it
Yeah.
be oil spill or a nuclear disaster or rising ocean levels or whatever you want to say, right? Like I think for most people, it's just the fact that it's it's just the world is ending, right?
Mhm.
And no
Mhm.
one's going to do anything about it.
Mhm. Yeah.
And this is part of what I wanted to get at too, which is I think it's like J-Reg, I think, is like in the middle of this. I don't know how familiar you are with his channel,
No.
but he's a political satire channel. Does a lot of stuff with anti-centrism. Basically, is some of the stuff he'll do, and so he talks about this kind of
He's
the ex
anti-me then, because I'm a centrist.
well,
The
there's
last
there's a
centrist.
there is a certain centrism to anti-centrism. That's also part of it too. Because that's his joke. He'll be like, I don't care which side, like which direction, which end of the political compass. Like at least someone's gonna do something, right? There's a certain
Mhm.
level of that. Anti-status quo, you could say. But I think he has his thumb on a lot of the stuff that like we're talking about or we're talking around. And the few times I've mentioned his name around the corner, I've gotten people saying like not disparaging things, but just like kind of dismissive things, being like, "Oh, like what a foolish guy," or like that's like he makes horrible stuff or something like that. And I'm like,
Mhm.
there's a certain point where it's just like this is what the what's looking like, right? This does the be seem to be the way that people are reacting or seeing things.
Mhm.
Um, and especially when you don't have a religious framework that you can hold on to, it's
Can,
not easy.
can I take this in a spicy direction in
Go
relation
ahead.
to men and women?
Sure.
Okay. I'm playing off of PVK's recent videos about men becoming let's say agreeable or siding with movements and groups that are primarily female dominated.
Hmm.
And I think that trend has basically gone for about over 100 years now, like from women's suffrage all the way through. And I see just in the last 10 years, maybe even less than that, it's really newer. It's kind of an exhaustion of that strategy or like a pivot where it's a reality um, that it's no longer a feasible strategy finding a partner, finding a mate, um, that it's tilted sort of in the opposite direction. So you could think of like an agentic strategy where you as an agent figure out which herd to go into.
Mm.
And then you could think of an arenic strategy where it's like, okay, let me try to craft the right arena for the right herd, so to speak. And I see a pivot from that agentic strategy over to an arenic strategy. That's a very abstract and high level way of seeing what I'm seeing, or putting what I'm seeing.
Okay. So it used to be when was it agentic?
Um, the cool kids being in civil rights. The cool kids are hippies. You
Okay.
know, the cool
Early
kids are, yeah. So like all the way from
1960s, right? Like,
that's like a perfect example, you know.
yeah.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah, we believe in freedom because we believe in free love and all this stuff, and everybody, should just do themselves, and perfect freedom will have perfect love and perfect peace, perfect happiness. And that served the that movement, for men that were involved in that. Mhm.
Well, how did it serve the men involved in that?
So if it's about
Are we talking about like
Mhm.
that movement led to this might be on the second channel to women being more sexually available.
Yeah,
And so men are going to be on board because they're like, yeah, like of course I want that. There's a
yeah.
okay, this will definitely be on the other show because I just I'm gonna quote the Norm Macdonald bit. But he's talking about like back in the day, like we were so ignorant. And he says you know, like this whole thing with slut shaming. It's like even back then I was saying, guys, we don't want to shame the sluts. We should put them on our shoulders and worship them. And, and so there's this idea of like that where it's like it's very much like the whole kind of movement seems to be pushing women towards the place that men would want them to be,
Yeah.
being more sexually available for the most part, usually is what
Yes.
that looks like.
Yeah. And my sense of that is that I think this is a universal thing, what I'm about to say, but I think it tilts more, one's desire to have children is in relation to one's faith in the future as such. Like what children are a bet on the future, like faith in the future. It is the ultimate act of
Well,
sacrifice
it's an
because
investment, right? Like
yeah,
that's part of it.
yeah,
Yeah.
and you really have to give of yourself a lot now for the future. And in in a situation where there's less and less faith in the future as such, I think a desire to have children is corresponds with that. Like I think that really is the best barometer of like faith in the future as such. And
Mhm.
in a culture or society where it's not clear what the future will be or where the future is going, or that my children will have a better future than me, and the belief in that statement, my children will have a better future than me, continues to drop, then it basically takes the wind out of the sails of making a dangerous sacrifice, a dangerous investment. Um, and so that's really how I see the birth crisis. That's the gist of it in a nutshell. It's the uncertainty over a future, and I think,
Mhm.
um, and what I see younger men moving towards is a desire to shape the arena in such a way that adjusts the faith in the future proposition. Like this is the
Oh, okay.
established arena. Like this
Yeah.
this is the future. Like this is the arena in such a way that like it provides that structure and that certainty and that tradition, for lack of a better
Yeah.
word. Yeah.
No need to kind of trust, where it's going to go as it is, but like I'm going to craft the future into one in which I would be confident in having children.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah. So you could think of that faith in the future for the last 200 years, maybe even longer, being based on this idea of progress. Because everyone could see like, oh, look at the technology, look at things are getting better. Look, we can do this now, we can fly now, we got seatbelts, we got this, da, 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 da. It's just getting better and better. And it's like you see that stacking evidence of like life is actually getting better. And I still had that growing up, my generation.
Hmm.
And then you hit a certain point, and I think we have hit that in the last 10 to 15 years where it's like, is technology really continuing to make things better? Maybe in some ways, but it's not at all obvious to me that it is continuing to be. At the very least, technology is hitting a point of diminishing returns of making lives better, I think. Um,
I I think one thing that I've noticed is that I think the idea that there is a correlation between technology and the good life is like that illusion has been kind of falling away if I'm gonna actually take a stand on it.
mhm.
Like I think there was a point where that was kind of the way the default was that with every new iPhone the world's getting better or between these like releases when Netflix was created it made the world a better place.
Yeah.
Um, and I think with that you had this lifestyle creep that I've talked about in the past where everybody feels like they have to have all these things because these are the things that make the world better. Like,
Mhm.
right? Like, and so if I don't have Netflix, my world is not the best it could be. And if I don't have, the new iPhone, I'm I'm a step behind the cutting edge of the good life. And I think we've kind of reached a point where now we've been through enough of these cycles that people have seen, wait, the next thing isn't the next thing isn't that much better than the current thing. It's not different enough.
Mhm.
You kind of get the slop kind of mentality, where every iPhone is kind of the same thing.
Mhm.
Um, the new iPhone doesn't even have the features that are supposed to make it different yet. They're still waiting on that. Um, so that's part of it. But then I think part of it is also people are realizing that like a Jonathan Haidt kind of level of actually these things are making people's lives worse. Like the anxious generation,
Mhm.
that actually exposure to technology to the extent that we have these last 10 years or so has revealed that it's made people like, have trouble with literacy. Like we have a whole kind of like whole school system filled with children who should be able to read who lack basic ability to do so. Um, and so how do we decide what's the good life? And I think we haven't come to a consensus yet. And so we have a lot of people who are kind of in the field trying to make a case for it. And then that gets spicy. That's where it kind of gets crazy.
Yeah.
Yeah. Mm.
Like I see an immigrant the and this came up during Midwestuary because Sam basically forced the issue. So Rod Dreher and Elizabeth Oldfield were on stage with Kale and having a nice casual conversation,
Well,
chit-chatting basically. And then Sam on stage is like, well, I think I need to bring this up because it's on everybody's minds. And he brought up the immigration issue. But I kind of want to, I see it much from the avenue that I was just describing, which is like the desire to craft the arena, the generation Gen Z
yeah.
basically saying, okay, we're going to begin setting up this arena in such a way that is
How can I have an arena
conducive.
where I'm successful? I think is one
Yes.
way of putting it.
Yeah.
And it's not, yeah, it's not necessarily. I think we see this from the Western side. I think it's on every side of the conversation. There's a certain level of how can I make the arena one in which I'm successful.
Yep. Yep.
Um, yeah, I is it okay if we kind of shift towards that conversation a little bit? Like,
Sure.
because I that was another one where I was like not quite as frustrated, but I was a little frustrated with that conversation.
Hmm.
Um, I think they both did a great job of kind of explaining their positions. I lean a little bit more towards Elizabeth Oldfield generally.
Hmm.
I'm a little bit more, let's all like love each other and all that kind of stuff. But I
Yeah.
felt like she had been so isolated from any of these kind of news stories that
Mm.
and her inability to kind of respond was a little frustrating.
Mm.
Um, because I think there's an easy response, which is, any amount of these like violent altercations is too much. Like that's not acceptable. And there is the fact that justice has not been done. Like
Mm.
there are victims out there who have not been cared for as we should care for them, and we've ignored them. And it doesn't mean that it's okay to like castigate a group of people, but like let's take care of these people who have been wrongfully hurt, and like I want to see justice. And that's understandable. But I think what the problem is that I see from the outside is that justice hasn't been done. And there are a lot of people who don't know any other route
Hmm.
to carry out their grievances.
Hmm.
And
Again, it's this lack of discernment. It's this lack of
yeah,
discernment at the border of like ability to say, oh, this is a good person to add to the body, and and this feeling like any discernment is bad, is evil. It's like, oh, because we might mess up. It's like, yeah, we might mess up. We're gonna mess up, but like,
yeah,
yeah, but we try to do better. We try to fix it. We do the best we can.
exactly.
Yeah.
Yeah.
But I feel like, for the last I don't know how long, 20 years or something, there's been no discernment. And then the worry is to go from zero discernment to 99 discernment. And that like yeah, my frustration was the inability to see this as like almost an immune response. Like
Yeah,
to
exactly.
Yeah,
Yeah,
yeah, like if you just understand it as a body that reaches a tipping point where it's like it every man, yeah,
well, and
yeah,
part of
go
my
ahead.
point is that
Hmm.
there are steps that can be taken that wouldn't push people over an edge and
Hmm.
feel like they have to go as far as they do.
Hmm.
Like there are plenty of people who are in the center or even on one side, right? Who would not feel like they have to change the way that they see the world if steps were taken to make sure justice was done
Hmm.
in these situations. But the
Hmm.
fact that nothing is done
Hmm.
or that people get away with horrible things,
Hmm.
um, it leaves people no other choice, right? And it's the immune response. It's like, well, you know, it must take there must be a drastic step needed to be taken to resolve this. Um, and it's frustrating to like see somebody on stage who I agree with a lot on a lot of these things and not be able to say
Hmm.
that it all becomes, well, no, you see your stories in the news and I see my stories in the news and we're disconnected. And it's like, well, let's be honest here, right? Like these stories are real. They might be uh uh you know um anecdotes. They might be anecdotes, a one-off, they might not be a greater pattern. But the problem is it's real, right? And there are people. And it could be a greater pattern. You
Hmm.
like as much as the media might be lying to one side, it might be
Hmm.
lying to you, right?
What
There's a certain
what
level of that.
Yeah, the problem is you have like a trail of evidence, and then you have an event, and you have another event, another event, another event, another event, and eventually, like people reach the point of beyond a reasonable doubt.
Yeah.
Yeah, and in the meantime, there's no antibody reaction to the event. There's no discernment of like we are taking this seriously and we're figuring out what to do about it. And so it just happens, and the pressure just builds.
Yeah.
And then it's like, okay, so you're going to go from a 98.6-degree body to like 108. Like, you really don't want that. You want to raise the temperature slowly to the point where you recalibrate the minimum possible force to solve the problem, minimum possible force, and then the temperature can lower again, and then it can self-regulate, right?
Yeah.
Um, but the problem is if you don't allow the body to take action to solve the small problems, and yeah, and it bubbles,
Well, and
and
I
yeah,
yeah, and I would argue that, we're seeing kind of two sides of the same coin between the United States and the UK. Like what is the reaction? And I think the US in some ways is going too far. And so there's a certain level of like there is a middle ground here, but nobody feels comfortable taking the middle ground. It's
yeah,
either go all the way one way or all the way the other.
yeah.
Um,
Well, okay, so the problem with that is that so what I see playing out right now in the United States, left and right. This is my frustration with Mark Parker. So Mark, if you're listening, this is my frustration with you. So for the last 10 years, it's Hitler, racism, patriarchy, da, 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 da. It's all the things, like all the way down for the last 10 years. And it's like on all the things that required discernment in the moment, all the things that required, like, yes, there's some bad elements here, you know, but all the things that required discernment, it's like full throttle, full social media attack, evil, 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 all the way down, unredeemable, all the way down. And now we're at the point where that full throttle, unredeemable all the way down, the power is gone. It's vanished because
yeah,
people are sick of it. People are sick of it. And so the now when we actually need a left that's reasonable and able to discern, we don't fucking have one. And that's and I think I don't know how far it's going to go. I don't know. And I don't know where my lines are to say, like, I will, take a stand or whatever the fuck that means. I don't even know what it would mean. But because of the grace of God, I actually believe that when the time comes to take a stand, I'm going to know because it's not going to be something that I'm like posting casually on Facebook. It's going to be something in my life where my ass is like on the line, so to speak. And when that
yeah,
happens, then I will take a stand and I will know by the grace of God and I trust in the Lord. But again, that's all that's all grace. That's all. And so on one hand, like I said, I'm very frustrated with the left over the last 12 years or so. But on the other hand, I'm like, this is going to play out as it's meant to play out, and we are in God's hands. And I should not be anxious. And we have to trust. We have to trust in the Lord. Yeah.
yeah. Well, and I think what goes along with this, I don't know why this popped into my head, but one thing that I've been thinking about as well is this you see this pendulum swing all the way across
Mhm.
in a lot of different places. I remember my wife pointed out to me, and she said she was starting to notice stuff, I think maybe about a year or two ago,
Mhm.
and said, I'm starting to see people post like I don't know how else to say it, like skinnier kind of like a beauty standard, like a skinnier beauty standard. And it was just
Mhm.
like a hint of it. She was like, it's gonna change. Like she said, mark my words, it's gonna be the year 2000 all over again.
Mhm.
And it's all gonna come back. And sure enough, like we're seeing it. Like it's coming. Like you see, anorexia is on the rise again among young people. Um, you see that approach, and there's a lot of theories for this. Some people will say that it's all Ozempic's fault or something like that. But I think there is a spiritual kind of force kind of moving right now, and I think that's part of it. Is um, I think part of that was just that it got pushed so hard. Like there was no kind of middle ground of like, hey, uh, you know, healthy at any size is just not it doesn't work that way, right? Like maybe healthy at your size or something like that. Like a rephrasing of
God,
that
yeah,
thought.
God
But
gives us the right to experience the consequences of our actions. God gives us that right. And individually and collectively, we are going to experience the consequences of our actions.
yeah. And so it's just it hurts because there's going to be a whole group of people who are going to have the opposite experience again, right? They're going to be people who are because of this are going to be pushed the complete opposite direction. They're going to, become bulimic or anorexic, and we've been through this, right? Like I think that's the frustrating part is like this is a lesson that people like we should be able to teach at this point, and I don't know if we're prepared for it right now. And
Yeah, I see
yeah.
that as the proliferation of all the spirits, and all the spirits of the ages are gonna make their comeback. You're gonna have the anorexia spirit, and you're gonna have the vanity, what are they called? Like lip filler and oversized butt, like whatever that is. I don't even know the term, like that spirit. And you're gonna have, whatever spirit Andrew Tate is, machismo, and the Arnold Schwarzenegger spirit, and the Orthodox Viking spirit. Yeah, we're gonna conquer the world. Like all these spirits, it's the meta spirit cluster. It's
Hmm.
and it's gonna be one giant free for all team deathmatch. Probably not a team deathmatch, but it does feel like we're in a bit of a free for all with factions at the moment. But those factions can change at the drop of a dime.
Yeah.
And,
And yeah, it feels like the anything kind of holding together, any bounds have been kind of just let go. And
mhm.
it's a renegotiation of all the restrictions or restraints that we previously had. And yeah.
You wanted an adventure, Abraham? Getting out of your parents' tent? You want an adventure? Here's an adventure.
Yeah.
I genuinely, maybe we could pivot a little bit on our thoughts to the future and future events and stuff like that. Like, I genuinely think we are at least attempting or aiming within TLC, but I mean the estuary movement more broadly, but attempting to keep these constituent pieces stitched together
Hmm.
or strengthen the ties in some way, shape, or form. I said it to someone recently that, we're I think Chad came up with this originally, but almost like secret agents, still at our best, secret agents aiming to keep the world together. Um, on one hand, it's just conversation, and on the other hand, it's like it's who is my neighbor, you know, um,
Yeah.
and not being threatened by. Oh man, this is so hard. It's like not having my initial somehow training somehow training the right brain response to the other not being threat response. I know our left brain can make up for that, but somehow training the right brain to be like, maybe I've got some learning to do because the most valuable time that I had at this event was in talking to Gen Z people. That was the most valuable time because there is a lot that I didn't know and I still don't know. And we got a lot of learning to do. And anybody that thinks they got this figured out and that they know the way forward, yeah. I In some ways I kind of there was a point, this is weird, but I at the end of the event, the Midwestuary, I put my paper in the bucket and I had like four different things I was thinking about pitching to them,
Hmm.
but as a topic. But one of the about pitching, oh, did my microphone just change? Um,
It just went out for a second, but you sound
oh,
fine now.
it's back. Okay, okay. I'm sorry. I think yeah. So I had the opportunity to pitch to the well, I didn't go up on stage. I wasn't picked, but like I put my thing in the ring, in the hat, so to speak, and I had like four things I was thinking about asking them. But one of the things that I was thinking about asking them is um something along the lines of, do you feel like your fame has isolated you? Or do you feel
Hmm.
like as a result of you gaining more prominent, what have you lost as a result of you gaining more prominence and more
Hmm.
publicity? That's maybe the best way of putting it. What have you lost?
Yeah.
Or what do you miss? Or what do you regret as a result of that? Um, because I'd be really curious to say, because anybody who says like, oh, I don't miss it, because PVK is one of the few people I know that talk about, the losses and the misses of that, and the fact that how much he really enjoys talking to random people.
Yeah.
Because I like nowadays, like I learn the most from random people, and that's in my local church, and that's at this event. Yeah. Anyway, thoughts on that.
Yeah. Specifically on the because you were talking about young people and the kind of talks on stage. I felt like that was something that felt very disconnected. That there was a I don't know. It was and there are only a few times where kind of the next generation was brought up on stage, and one of them was Roger, talking like offhandedly that you know uh he's like not it's not happened yet, but we got to be careful that like the young people, Gen Z, don't fall off the deep end and go down a political rabbit hole, we'll say. And I was looking around to me, like Bax is sitting next to me, and I feel there, and we kind of like looked at each other and were like, "It's already happened. What are you talking about? Like it's already there." And then he had an offhanded comment about brain rot or something, and it just felt so disconnected from any experience.
Yeah.
Um, and it was just kind of hard because I'm like, I don't even know if I'll be able to ever have a conversation with him about it or
Mm.
talk to him or for him to have that conversation with anybody. I don't know if there's anybody in his life that could have that. Like it's just it's going to always be just out of his reach on unless something, happens. Um and so it was kind of I don't know, sad but kind of frustrating to think about of like I don't know. It's it's I don't know. I wish that
It, it,
like
it, it,
either
it-
either John or Afriel was on stage with them in that conversation because I think that
mm,
would have been a good voice.
mm,
I think that would have been at least another voice that was there. I don't think the balance would have been even across that conversation. So maybe you need somebody who's a little bit careful about their ability to communicate. But I think that would have been a very productive thing to have.
mm. I almost think that the difference between generations today, it's like that 40-year difference, let's say, or even 30-year difference between generations is equivalent to like a 90-year difference 100 years ago. Like it's
Mhm.
accelerated. I do think we're hitting the point of diminishing a diminishing rate of change on that. Meaning, excuse me, I think uh, cultural change is downstream of technological change. and it's at least like a generation, like 15 to 20 years downstream of it, and maybe even more, because you got to think of like the people that make culture are the people in their 20s and 30s typically now, and but it takes 20 years for that cycle of people to catch up because it's the people who are learning technology when they're single digits or in their teens to actually move
Hmm.
into the position of making culture. Um, if you think about like how fast, and I think there have been other points in life that have been like this, where like the move into cities and factories with cars instead of the horse and buggy and things like refrigerators and toilets and all that stuff. But in some ways, okay, where I think that was less disruptive is those are tools for how to accomplish a task that everyone had to do, whether it's like cook food or get somewhere, and it made it more convenient to go to the bathroom. Um, but now we have ways of spending our time that are completely removed. Like the way how does
Yeah.
Rod Dreher think of an 8 second TikTok video or like 2 second? Like has Rod Dreher ever swiped left? Ever? Like, and it's nothing against Rod Dreher, but it's like
No, yeah.
that's even a foreign concept for me. Like that's what I mean.
Hmm.
Like it's a weird
Yeah.
like it's um like I do watch those short videos, but very quickly I'm like I could just waste like an hour here.
Yeah.
You know. Um but do you get what I'm saying? Like, yeah.
Yeah. Yeah. I don't know. I think there is this is one thing I heard. I heard somebody make this comment offhandedly over Midwestary, and they said something along the lines of the need for leisure. They're like, oh, like we need more leisure. And my response in my head is like, what are you talking about?
Yeah.
Like it was the young person saying it. I have no clue what they're getting at because we we live in such an automated society. Everybody has dishwashers
Mhm.
and washing machines. You don't
Mhm.
wash your clothes manually. Most people go out to eat quite frequently or order takeout. Like what are you referring to by leisure?
Mhm.
I remember having this conversation with an older guy talking about LLMs, and he said LLMs are amazing because they free up my ability to not have to generate emails or something like that. Like what are you going to do with that time? Like what are
Mhm.
you and somebody else made this argument the other day, and I somebody was saying that like, oh yeah, I can write poetry, more poetry now that I don't have to wash the
Yeah.
dishes. And I said it kind of glibly, but I do mean it, which is you can't write poetry if you don't wash the dishes. Like that is part of the
Yeah.
the deal. And this is kind of what you were getting at too, with like with prominence, what have you lost? Like there is a certain level of like you don't have the on the ground experience to have earned the right to make anything or to say anything. And I hate to sound mean about it, but like I think that like that's part of the frustration we've had with Jordan Peterson around
Mhm.
here, like
Mhm.
for a while now, is that
Mhm.
he 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 has rarely actually talked to somebody. Like in the few good moments, it's whenever he actually encounters a real person for once. Um, and so I don't know, like I think that's part of it too, where it's like we talk about the how great technology is and how much better it's made our lives, but if you're not living your life, then like who cares? Like if you're not actually experiencing it, then like, you know,
Yeah.
we could
Well,
automate watching TikToks too. Like we could do it all. Like and I don't know, like
my meaning and purpose and value that I find in my life has gone up in direct proportion to the amount of my life committed to leisure has gone down.
mhm.
Um, I have very little leisure time in the conventional sense. Don't get me wrong, I do have it. I actually have plenty of
Oh
it,
yeah.
but it's
You live in the
yeah,
21st century. You have
yeah,
plenty of leisure time.
yeah, but it's
Yeah.
always like I actually hand wash my dishes.
Yeah.
Um, but it's always like I'm cooking or I'm hand washing dishes and then I have the leisure time, or it's at the end of the day and I just need to like relax and unwind, or I'm going for a walk and I want to listen to something, you know. Um, but all that meaning and purpose and value is in direct proportion to other people.
Mhm.
Um, it's in direct proportion to what I'm doing for others, or at least for some greater purpose beyond myself.
But I don't even think it needs to be that complex. Like I think to a certain extent, um, if you're working in a garden
Hmm.
that no one's gonna see,
Yeah,
but you can appreciate it,
yeah,
like that's something that's going to have that same effect.
that's true.
Um, and so you can get more meaning, obviously with doing something with others or for others and serving them. Um, obviously, I believe that. But I think the frustrating part is that nobody's even going to the garden level, even for yourself. It's I'm just gonna, I don't know, do whatever makes me feel good and get really depressed after watching a million TikToks. And it's not even TikToks. I'm picking on Gen Z, but it's true for all the generations. It's watching Netflix or, whatever you want to fill in that box in. Could even be reading books, honestly. I don't know.
Hmm. Yeah.
But
So
yeah.
maybe last topic. What are your thoughts on future events? What are coming out of Midwestary? What does it make you think of, feel like we should be thinking about or doing?
I'm selfish. So I'm gonna think about myself for the most part.
That's good.
Because a lot of people talked about how great it was to have a big conference, connect to new people. And that's great and all. But I think there is a certain level of like if somebody's coming just for Jonathan Peugeot, I can't imagine how weird this situation was for them and how frustrating it could be if they're like, I just want to hear Jonathan Peugeot talk, and there's all this other stuff in the way. Um, whereas like I don't know, I like the smaller events because I actually get to talk to my friends, and I really don't care much about people talking on stage. I think for the most part, it's more frustrating than it is
Yeah, but
enlightening or
you were sitting in the first row. Oh, that's
oh
because
yeah,
that's because of the camcorder. Is
the
that why?
camcorder.
Yeah.
Yeah. That's actually why I would have probably sat in the back and talked to McMo half the time. But um, this what was it? Skinkenstein was talking about the back row Baptists. He's like, you're showing me up back there. Um, yeah, it was just it didn't had as much as I would have hoped. Even the best talks, right? I think for Vicky's was kind of the standout of like the most impressive of the presentations, and that was something good. But
My
if I had that
favorite
choice or Estuary, I probably would have gone to another
Estuary.
Estuary group.
Yeah, I feel similarly. I have a few thoughts on that. One is that my favorite part of the entire thing was the Q&A all the way at the end where random people went on stage, and I really liked that. I thought it was great. And there was one guy, younger guy, I think he was in his 20s. I don't know how old he was, but he asked John Vervaeke about the problem of evil.
Hmm.
Like, and he directed that question directly at Vervaeke, and I'd never heard Vervaeke address that, and I thought it was a really well formulated question. I thought it was brilliant that he asked Vervaeke that, and I think
Yeah,
I wasn't really satisfied with Vervaeke's response, but I was just really impressed by the question, and so. Um,
yeah,
but in Vervaeke's defense, it's the hardest problem there is, problem of suffering, your problem of evil, whichever take your pick. Um, and okay, so that's one thing. Second thing was that I knew going into this that there's really two kinds of events. There's the kinds of events that solidify existing relationships, strengthen those, and there's the kinds of events that get new people interested and get a movement, for lack of a better word, growing. And this is the second. I mean, honestly, it was also the first for me.
hmm
Um, but I knew that for many people is the second. And I really do hope that some people who didn't know what Estuary was or were skeptical about meeting these online people or any of the online activities, I really do hope that they get a renewed faith in getting involved and just, participating and adding their talents to the world, to the pool, um,
Yeah.
bringing forth fruit in fives or tens or maybe even hundreds. Um, there was a third point I wanted to make, but oh, and that is yes, selfishly, I want to do a smaller event or smaller events. Yeah.
I
I
want to
think
do a
if,
speakerless event.
yeah, yeah, yeah. So if PVK, so PVK's been mentioning his Connecticut, doing Connecticut in the spring. If he does that, I'll probably go to that again because I went to his Connecticut in the fall and I loved it. And that was speakerless and it was all estuary all the time, all the way down. A lot of fun, a lot of fun.
Yeah.
Although I talked too much there, but that's okay.
So even that feels like too much structure to me.
Yeah.
I almost would want just like hey, like let's all agree to, basically like a family reunion style. Like let's all
Mhm.
just like head out.
Mhm.
We'll hang out. Um, the tough part is like finding like what number of people is kind of ideal for that. But
Oh, how I want to be in the number of people for that.
I thought you were gonna go to be an American. I thought you were gonna
And I'm
go the other
proud
route.
to be an American.
We're gonna get some hate comments from Mark.
Yeah.
But
Haters gonna hate.
but yeah. Yeah, I mean like that'd be my ideal is basically like I've done camp outs with the Washington guys and it's been a good time. Um I guess they're not really all the Washington guys, but the guys that I'll hang out with. And those camp outs have been some of my favorite moments in TLC of just being able to sit around a campfire and talk
Mhm.
and do that.
That's
And
awesome.
that was the same thing with Northwestuary of doing the camp outs and stuff and being at the campsite and hanging out and yeah,
I'm sorry I
hearing
missed that one.
about
I
our
really am
brothers
sorry I missed Northwestuary.
spider bite.
Spider butt.
Spider bite.
Parlato. He,
I
he sort
will,
of did turn into Spider-Man. Like he's
true,
got that like he could climb all over walls and whatnot. Yeah.
man. I love hanging out with
Methamphetamine
Parlato.
is
I'm so sad.
methamphetamine is a hell of a drug. It's all
Well, he kept saying the entire time, he's like, I don't know if I'll be around much more. We'll see. And I was like, oh no,
Yeah, I hope so.
me too. But you know what? If he has better stuff or God has him somewhere else, then
Yeah.
I won't selfishly hold on. I'll let him go. I'll let him do what he needs to before he comes back and shares it.
I wonder if history will think of this as an incubator, a spiritual incubator.
Like an Inklings,
Yeah, but I would
a bigger
say
one.
where the Inklings were focused on writing, I think the reason I say a spiritual incubator is because I think it'll be many different things. I think for some people it'll be a family, for some people it'll be joining priesthood or becoming a pastor. Uh, Others might be going on mission trips. Others it might be starting companies. Others it might be starting nonprofits. Yeah.
Do you think like I'm trying to think of anything analogous, and this
Mhm.
is kind of the tough part.
Mhm.
I think about Greenwich Village, like in the 50s. You have like this time and place where folk music kind of exploded, and it was like the seed of all these kind of famous folk artists who kind of
Mhm.
came out of that environment. Um, what was it, Transcendentalism, the Second Great Awakening?
Mm.
There's a certain like woman.
Florence, 1420, 1450.
What was going on in Florence in 1450?
The Renaissance.
The Renaissance.
Yeah,
Well, don't bring up the
Michelangelo
Renaissance.
and
Everybody's mad about the Renaissance, apparently. Who was it? Peugeot, who's
I'm
very
not mad about the
anti-Renaissance.
Renaissance. I am pro Renaissance, people.
It's the beginning of the end.
Yeah. Yeah, I guess
But
late 1400s. Yeah, early 1500s.
huh.
Um, yeah.
And then depending on who you are, you might be like Protestant Reformation or something or that era, Counter
Mm.
Reformation. But I'm curious. I'm curious to see where it goes. Um, but we've been warned recently that you know, you gotta be careful about who's leading the flock.
I think we'll survive. Yeah.
I think we'll be fine.
Yeah.
And who knows, if it doesn't end well, I'll have my my local estuary and I'll just change the name of it and still do the same thing. So
I
it'll work.
remember the original Deus Ex. You had the Northwest Successionary Forces, the NSF, and they were a separate independent republic from the rest of whatever was going on there. So I'll keep that in mind in relation to, yeah.
I feel like in almost every single fictional world, they always make the Pacific Northwest its own country. It's all separate off, called something else. Cascadia. Yeah.
Wabash.
I don't know if you knew this little weird fact, but there was a point where Northern California was planning on splitting off and becoming its own state,
Hmm.
and the day they were going to announce it and put it in the papers was Pearl Harbor.
Jeez.
So it kind of rained on their parade, and so it was kind of forgotten about in the rush of entering World War II.
Bigger fish to fry. Wow. No, I did not know that. That's crazy. That's nuts.
Yeah,
Wow. That's God intervening.
we didn't need two Californias, so we're good enough with one.
Wow.
Yeah. Did you
All
have
right.
any more closing thoughts or
No, I think this was a great conversation. I think the last thing I want to say is I learned a lot in just participating and being part of the conference and helping out. And I do want to encourage anyone that wants to do something, especially on a smaller scale, do it and be bold, and mighty forces will come to your aid. And have courage, for God is with you.
yeah,
Yeah.
start an estuary,
Mm.
estuaryhub.net, and yeah, it's a fun time, and you might meet some interesting folks in your community who when you mention their name to Paul Vanderklay, he looks at you like this. He led an
Whoever gets
estuary.
tea grog to an estuary.
I don't know if you were there for that, Neil, but I actually
No,
that happened to me. I was telling Paul about one of the members of my estuary
I was
who
there
shows
for
up.
that. Yeah.
Yeah, he had a very unique face. I don't think I've seen him make that face before.
That means of all the people that Paul's ever interacted with, which are many, the one that you have the honor and privilege of interacting with exceeds them all in some standard.
Oh, well, I love my estuary, and
Awesome.
I look forward to having more people join. So,
Well, if I'm
okay,
out there in Washington, I'll try to join.
feel
So,
free to join. Yeah,
yeah,
then we'll have I'll make something. I'll make food too.
awesome.
Yeah.
All
Well,
right. I'm
I think that
signing
calls it.
off. Here, stay on,
Yeah.
and I'm just gonna hit stop. Here we go.